Hi, my name is Kimberly from Zeman Development. Today I want to give you an overview of all the functionality that Chimpegration Pro offers. So when you open up Chimpegration in Razor's Edge, you'll see all of the available options below. I'm just going to talk you through them one by one. So first of all, you can export Razor's Edge data into a MailChimp list. Simply select your MailChimp list here. We can export into any groups that might exist in that list. We can choose a query to export the data from, and then we can choose whether to add new emails or simply add new emails and update existing values. And then we can map our data across. So we've got the Razor's Edge fields on the left, the MailChimp values here, and we simply double click to match those up. Once we've finished that, we run it and that will export our list into MailChimp. Once we've sent out our email as usual, we can bring the campaign results back into Razor's Edge. We choose the campaign and we choose which data we want to bring back from that campaign. So we can get our bounces, our unsubscribes, people who marked us as spam, or everyone we sent the email to, or we can choose just to get open and click data. Again, we can choose how to match our records, so either by email address or constituent ID. And then we can choose how to process the data that we've retrieved. So if we've got our bounces, we might want to delete the email or change it to an inactive email. If we've got our unsubscribes, we might want to mark them as do not contact or mark as request no email, or maybe add a consent record. I've got everyone sent, so I'm going to add an action exactly as you ordinarily would in Razor's Edge. And I can also include the open and click history as an action attribute as well. I can remove subscribers from a list if they no longer appear in a query. So I select the list. I can choose to match on constituent ID, and I choose which field to map that on, or email address. I choose the query to compare my list against. And then I can choose to either delete the subscriber altogether, unsubscribe them, or remove them from a group. I can also export users into an automation workflow. I select the workflow, choose the email I want them to start on. Once again, choose a query of constituents I want to push into that workflow, prioritize their email addresses, and run the export. And then I can synchronize constituent data both ways between Razor's Edge and MailChimp. I can also do this with relationship data. They're separate processes, but they look exactly the same. First of all, I select my list, my MailChimp list that I want to synchronize. I create a control report, which just shows us any errors there might be in the processing and gives us a summary of what processes we've managed. Choose a query that I want to synchronize with my list, and I can synchronize a segment as well if I'd rather. The mapping is exactly as we've seen before, so the MailChimp values are mapped to the Razor's Edge values, and we can choose whether or not a blank field can overwrite a populated field. We can also synchronize our MailChimp groups with a variety of different areas in Razor's Edge. So a constituent code, a solicit code, a single attribute or a multiple attribute category, and a consent record. And finally, I've got some settings that allow me to choose how to manage data that doesn't match my code tables, how to deal with new email addresses so I don't lose my email address history. I can add a default constituent code and a default attribute. And I've got some address backup options here so I don't lose my address history either when I'm bringing in new data. And when I run the synchronization, I can choose when to run the synchronization from. Or I can just run it from the last date. When I click run, I'll be shown a review screen so I can review all of the data before anything is pulled into Razor's Edge or pushed out into MailChimp. The screen shows me the Razor's Edge data are on the left and the MailChimp data on the right and the direction of flow down the center. And I can very easily change the direction of data flow, and I can check the record as well by clicking on the MailChimp link here. And if the Razor's Edge record is showing, I can click on the Razor's Edge link here to go to the Razor's Edge record. This process, as I said, is exactly the same for relationship data. And the import of new constituents is very, very similar, but rather than pushing data both ways, it's simply bringing in new constituents or updated constituent data into Razor's Edge rather than pushing it out to MailChimp as well. I hope that gives you a good overview of Chimpegration Pro. Thanks for listening.